Funny story. When I posted the first video of this series, it was actually the guide video that I created to guide myself through this, which had none of my um, LP audio, and it had a bunch of awkward jump cuts. Luckily, according to the viewer count, only one person got to see that hot mess before I was able to realize that there was a problem. This is why I review my videos. It would have been better if I'd reviewed it before upload, but I was on a time crunch, so that's a thing that happened. Oh boy, I don't know why. It's nothing wrong with the games themselves, but my attempts to LP Metroid games have always been cursed. But here we are, handling the tropical habitat. Now, I mentioned last time that I'd bring it up, but yes, I don't know what it is about the tropical habitat, but its maze-like properties constantly get me lost. I think it might be some of the overlap in the map and the tall vertical shafts that are not as easy to figure out as more linear corridors. I have the same problem with the Arctic environment in this game. And both of them share a common vein in common, where they have a lot of hidden map, as opposed to map that is open and available at the very start. So, finally got the Morph Ball. So yeah, a little late, later in, because of my time crunch, I don't have the opportunity to review these quite as well as I'd like. But because of the time crunch, I ended up being a little shaky in terms of my navigation for this run. And I went through some doors I didn't need to go through. And you might figure that, oh, well, it's just a couple of seconds. If you're not, like, speed running or anything like that, what does it matter? Like I said, if you want to get 100% of the items and the proper completion time with this game, it is very tight. You basically have to minimize wasted time as much as possible. Don't go down any corridors that you don't need to go down. And that's another problem, is that my time spent on the boss fights and the boss eye doors is also draining like an extra 30 seconds here and there, which will accumulate by the end of this. I'm still confident since I've completed the AQA, the water sector, for the first run, and I'm still just over like 30 minutes or around that area. So I think I should be able to get the rest of it in time. So long as I'm below an hour and a half, when I have to retread the map on basically an item collection run, I should be safe. Because the item collection run should not take more than 20 minutes, and then the final boss battle, I should be able to squeeze by with 10, give or take. So there shouldn't be a problem there. Yeah, there's an alternate shortcut for this that I didn't think of, where I could have just dropped straight in instead of trading damage there and slowing myself down. Lots of little inefficiencies, and they bother me. I still can't believe I posted the video of... Oh. It's not like I didn't review the video ahead of time, because I did, but I ended up posting the wrong one, because they have very similar names. And I was just trying to, like, rush it out there. Such is the life of an LPer. Shit will happen. Like, right here, I basically explored the entirety of that room thinking there was a higher door, but I was thinking of a different shaft. And I think that is part of the reason why this is more difficult, at least for me to navigate, is that the verticality of it confuses the issue, because you have about 3 different vertical shafts, all with a bunch of different exit doors, and it makes problems. So yeah, that's another wrong door. And I think I try another wrong door before I actually go down the hallway I need to face the boss. This Because I come down here, which is the right door for facing the boss. You're not even supposed to be able to get out without the high jump, but I actually pulled off a wall jump here. Twice. Check out this door, and it's like, wrong door again. So yeah, that's like 30 seconds I just wasted there. And this eye gave me static where it just kept using the blast and wouldn't be vulnerable for me. Or was it the eye in the next sector? Nope, it was the eye in the next sector, the eye that protected the door to Ceres. See, I just look at that and see a shrimp. And again, this boss is just taking time. It reminds me of the spider thing that you fight later, which a lot of people are like, oh, you mean Arachnus? And it's like, no, because Arachnus is the turtle guy. I mean, again, for English speakers, Arak sounds like A-R-C-H. It sounds like spider. But no, in this, it's the turtle. I mean, why is this Sazabi? I mean, I don't know, because it's probably a Japanese thing, because Char's mobile suit in Char's counterattack was also called Sazabi, so it probably means something. You know, it was an entirely non-canonical take to have a fusion mode in AM2R, but I'm glad it was included. I mean, at the time, the only game where you actually fought the X was this one. Until Dread came out and the X were reintroduced as an antagonistic alien species. Yeah, this took a bit longer. My run through SRX was 11 minutes, including the main deck bit where I was navigating that whole business. This took me... You can already see that I'm not even out of the zone, and it's already coming up on... By the time I leave, it'll be 10 minutes. And it'll be 10 minutes before the next zone. So how did I go from clearing 2 zones in 10 minutes to taking 10 minutes just to clear 1 zone? Which is a discouraging thought. I paused on the map for a bit just to get my bearings. I think this is our first encounter with the SAX. As per our instructions, do not confront it. Mysteriously, once it goes through the door, it just vanishes. I think part of the issue is that SRX, that habitat, did not have a whole lot of items to be collected, or they were easily accessible. Here, I got a monkey bar over to get this missile tank, there's an underwater bit which naturally slows you down, and I have to deal with those, like, hidden pillars to get another thing. And then there's making this jump. You gotta make it perfectly, and I didn't mean to leave ball form there, but like I said, the D-pad is unreliable. Must have thought I pressed up. And right there, that could have taken 5 minutes and ends up taking 15. And little screw-ups like that are gonna cost me in the end. I'm still just fingers crossed that this whole thing turns out fine. And, you know, it's in the completion time, I don't miss an item, because I actually was looking over the footage that I was using as a guide for this section, and I had errantly actually cut out one of the items that I needed to collect. We've already passed it. It's that thing I had to, like, burrow down to reach. So yeah, it's just nothing but screw-ups. It's going poorly. I'm glad I'm post-commentating this as opposed to live commentating, because I would just blow it. Gotta make sure, as well, to upload this version and not the version I used as a guide. I mean, it's one of those, like, what are the odds lightning will strike twice? It's like, you know, true, sure, but at the same time, I'm not willing to risk it. I mean, the sector we have coming after this is Pyro, which is the hot sector. And it's, like, the secrets that we can access now early game are relatively easy to get, so it should go by pretty quickly. But I think after that is the Nock sector, the Nocturnal sector, unless we make our first run back to the main deck, because that's going to come up at some point. And yes, I left the ship's computer in to just scroll it out. Luckily this time, 20 minutes of additional gameplay time in a 30-minute video, which means we went from 20 minutes, plus possibly of exposition and, you know, slow scroll text, to 10. And it should decrease over time. Here's the thing. Slow scrolling it lets viewers engage themselves in the story and what's happening, especially if they can't quick read. And, I mean, the argument, of course, is that, like, well, it's a video, it's not live streaming, you could just pause the video to read it. But I know that there's going to be somebody out there that will complain that that's too much effort. But on the other hand, if you let it slow scroll and it drives somebody crazy, like, just get on with it already! You run into this problem of, like, you know, you could just skip the dialogue straight into the gameplay, and again, oh, that's too much effort. I mean, this isn't like Pokemon. I can't set a text scroll speed. Either I let it spool out, or I just hold the A button and skip through it. Like, if you're doing your 5th run in Metal Gear, and you just want to get through those codex things as quickly as possible. At least with Metal Gear Solid 2, they introduced a thing that you could just, like, hold square or whatever, and it would just, like, zip through before you had to skip each individual dialogue box. Mashing X. I mean, it was a nice callback to this game in AM2R to have Ceres appear. I don't think you get the speed boost from it, because in that game you don't absorb abilities from enemies. Well, I mean, aside from Arachnus, because the whole point of that boss battle was defeating him is what gives you the spring ball. But I don't think you got the speed boost from Ceres. I was probably wrong. Probably do get it from Ceres somehow. That's the point. I'd love to have, like, perfect recollection where I could just say right off that, like, oh no, yeah, that's the thing that happened. Because I played AM2R, I played it several times. I have a Let's Play on this channel of AM2R, and I don't remember if you get the speed boost from Ceres or not. Here, of course, you do get it from Ceres. Now, a thing I'd like to point out is that there's a... Well, I mean, obviously, considering it's Nintendo, this is a Japanese game originally. In the Japanese version, much like Zero Mission, and ultimately, because this came out first, it's Zero Mission that was inspired by this, not the other way around. In the Japanese version, Metroid Fusion actually had a difficulty selection. There was like a hard mode and everything. In the American version, for some reason, that was gone. I don't know. I would assume, given that stuff like Mario Bros. 2 was released in this country, it was released... Okay, so our Mario 2, because I've been over this in my Mario videos, but if you're a North American, and you played Super Mario Bros. 2, you didn't play Super Mario Bros. 2. You played a reskin of a game called Doki Doki Panic, which Doki Doki is basically Nihon for heart racing. The real Super Mario Bros. 2, much like Doom 2, actually, was basically the same engine, it was the same thing, only more of it and harder, and kind of maliciously harder in some ways. There is a warp pipe that if you go to, you get stuck taking that warps you back to the beginning. Like that kind of sneaky monkey's paw shit. And in North America, that became known as the Lost Levels. Make of that what you will. But yeah, I'd wager that the fixed difficulty setting, because they removed that from the North American or whatever version of the game, is probably medium. They probably just stuck it at medium. And there's unique ending screens, which feature a young Samus in the Japanese version. Samus with her Chozo bird parents, which I ranted on before about how Other M, it's like, oh, well, Adam Malkovich was a father figure. Why, though? She had father figures. She had multiple father figures. Why Adam Malkovich? I mean, are we literally just going the, oh, well, because he's human and she's also human card? Is that where we're going with it? Are we playing the species card? I mean, the Chozo left the entire legacy, effectively, of their species to Samus. So, clearly her parents, her bird parents, cared deeply for her. I don't know, I haven't read the comics, which I'm not even sure if there are comics. There probably are. Gotta get the more complex lore that you can't really squeeze into a game out somehow. Gotta merchandise as well. Work that intellectual property. Yeah, recently there's been a little too much working of the intellectual property. I wish some of the major media vendors would slow down. Instead of churning out, like, quality pieces over a span of time, it's basically just slop very quickly. Now here's another point where I wasted time. All I had to do was go up this ladder and into a hidden area. But instead, I routed all the way around this into an area that's pointless. Probably like 10 wasted seconds. So I thought about it, and then, yeah, that's where the power-up was. Whole reason I came up here. Because there is no other reason to go into that particular vertical shaft. Every now and then I check the map because now I'm working out like, okay, so yeah, no, I gotta go down further, go up that route, and that'll get me to where I need to go. Well, the game does allude that you need to go through a secret... Oh, and I love this, that you go into where the boss is supposed to be and find the bones of Ceres. He's been eaten. And that's the thing, that's environmental storytelling right there. Because later on, there's going to be another boss that we're going to see the remains of the original, and we're going to know exactly, like, what we're in for. But the problem is that this game also loads a bunch of exposition and just clumsy dialogue. Yeah, here's where it, like, triple beamed me, and I just had to wait for 10 seconds for it to finally give me another opening. Or did it quadruple beam me? Yeah, it quadruple beamed me. Now, Ceres, what I do remember about Ceres and AM2R is that its profile indicated a weakness to cold, and it was in the sunken power plant or whatever, or no, the power distribution center, that's what it was called. It was in the power distribution center that you encountered Ceres, and that's also where you get the Ice Beam, which was the final beam you got in AM2R, because of course it would be the most important, since it's the one you need to actually defeat larval Metroids. And that was actually one of the ways you could end up not necessarily soft-locking yourself, but still kind of screwing yourself over in Metroid 2, is that if you went into the Metroid nest with anything other than the Ice Beam, you couldn't kill the Metroids that were there. So if you've been using a Plasma or Spazer or whatever, and you got there, you were just screwed. Well, I'm trying to think, did they have the Plasma Beam in the original Metroid 2? Because they had the Spazer, which became the Wide Beam in Fusion for some reason. They had the Spazer. They had the Wave Beam, because of course that was in the original Metroid, actually. Ice Beam, naturally. There was no Charge Beam. Charge Beam was definitely unique to Super Metroid at the time. But I'm not sure if they had a Plasma Beam. I want to say they did. But there was a certain amount of ceremony given to the Plasma Beam in Metroid 3, which would seem odd if it was something that was just sort of available. I don't know, again, the last time I played one of these Metroid titles for the LP, you're talking probably over a year ago. And at the time, I had been playing them a lot in preparation. And I played this a lot when I had originally planned on doing it, and I just couldn't get the collection rate or the timing down, and I was just like, well, I still can't perfect this. I need to perfect this. So here I am, still unable to achieve that perfection, kind of cobbling something together from disparate elements that fits the bill, it serves the purpose. I mean, it works. That's kind of a weird notion, though. The idea that it works, because technically, since I'm recording this episodically instead of all at once and then cutting it episodically, things could all go wrong later. And then it didn't work. But the videos are still up, and I'll have to re-record them. And I don't want to think about it. To try and stay on top of my projects, I'm juggling so many different things I mean, I've basically gone into a social coma. I used to get to my comments, I used to, you know, update stuff on my Discord. That stopped because I just can't find the opportunity. And say what you will, that it's just like a couple letters typed on a screen. How is it difficult to, like, get to that? And it's like, well, I like to form my responses in a thought-out way, as opposed to just dumping the first thing that's on my mind. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But I have a penchant to overthinking things. It's part of my character features, and I'm fond of it, so shut up. Also botched this. Again, I end up hitting diagonal instead of down, because the D-pad it's not cooperating. Because that water will really slow you down unless you shine spark through it like I do here, to just cut that little bit of extra time off. Whatever time I save is lost by the fact that I had to redo the shine spark. So we're gonna get another expositional dump from the ship's computer. Why is that even a revelation? Of course he was infected by the X. Everything on the station is. Well, apart from certain little friends of ours, but that's spoiler territory. Besides, they're as far away from all of this as is possible. The missile upgrade is an interesting change in this game. You know, in Super Metroid and Zero Mission, your super missiles are a distinct weapon item. They have their own ammo pool compared to the regular missiles, and they hit 5 times as hard. They also, of course, were necessary to open the green doors. However, here you get a super missile upgrade, which triples, as opposed to quintuples, the damage of your missiles, but it applies this effect to your standard missiles, which means that there's no limited supply of super missiles or unique super missile tanks. So you lose some of the immediate impact damage of an actual super missile, but you have much more ammunition to work with. And I think when you upgrade it for, like, ice or diffusion later, that it actually gets another unspoken damage boost. Because I know the model of the actual missiles you fire changes, and ends up with that sort of big bulbous head that one would expect to see on an actual super missile. The diffusion missile was an interesting concept. I kind of like that. It's not a thing that popped up in, say, Metroid Zero Mission. Honestly, what it's reminiscent to me of is when you fully charge a specific beam type in Super Metroid and then enter Morph Ball form, and it, like, uses one of your power bomb slots for a unique beam effect. And one of them caused, like, a rolling series of energy balls or something, or explosions, to encircle Samus kind of like an offensive shield. That's what it reminds me of. But that's just in terms of the visuals, not the actual effect. And that's part of the reason why we don't see the diffusion missile outside of this game, apart from maybe Metroid Dread. I don't know, I haven't played it. Because usually you have the Ice Beam. Your missiles don't have a freezing property. Because the Ice Beam was something held back from the player for a lot of this game, almost all of it, you get ice missiles instead, because Ship's computer will explain later that because you're vulnerable to cold, the properties of the Ice Beam are actually incompatible with your anatomy. I mean, I don't understand how a missile would work, but a beam wouldn't? Is it because the missile's a physical projectile, whereas the energy from her beam attack has to come from the suit? That's entirely possible. But again, maybe I'm just overthinking it. Yes, level 2 hatches, which are down and to the left, and then we have to go up and to the right, and then around, like, a lot of the lower areas here we're not even going to see until later, but that's another point. We have to come back to a lot of these. This environment we have to come back to 3 times. This one first, then the boiler one, and then we have to come back to it again once we have all the power-ups just to get the power-ups that are left here. Well, I can tell from the clock that time is running down on this one, so... I mean, there's still a minute, but... my editing software makes it difficult to set precisely when the audio starts and stops, unfortunately. And because I'm recording this watching the playback of the video in edit, still, I'm not quite sure if the audio is going to stretch or whatever to fill it, so I'm just going to say it now, while the ship's computer talks our ear off in stereotypical JRPG fashion. I hope to see you in the next video, and sorry if you enjoyed the last one where I didn't talk. That was not my intention.